Welcome back to live coverage of GP Rotterdam, ladies and gentlemen. My great pleasure to welcome you to the booth. Riley Knight alongside the Pro Tour champion Simon Goertzen. Once again, one final tilt at the windmill for today, my friends, in round number 8. We've got the Triple H team down at the bottom. Hohen, Ron and Hain are going to go at it. Hammer and tongs, as you can see on your screen now, my friends. Simon, these guys, as we've discussed earlier, they are no strangers to team limited events. They've won a bunch of them. In the past, these guys have taken down, I think, between them, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 team titles. I'll get the numbers up in just a minute here. But these guys are at they're put in a great performance so far at X and 1.
Depends on how you count. If you count the team events that Hohen and Tron won together, separately or together. But anyway, they have won a team event in that exact configuration before, and now they are teaming up again after having played with other opponents, and they're playing against some potent Belgian players. I know the Viren brothers from my active days, so this is going to be a fun match.
Yeah, Mike Ron in particular has played in a bunch of different teams. He's played with Justin Cohen, Craig Wesco, and of course these two, Alexander Hain and Hohen, who won GP Kyoto in 2013. So a bunch of titles to these guys' names, and they obviously are looking to get very, very deep into day 2 next, coming up tomorrow. On the back table, you can see Frank Karsten and his teammates there, Brett Voss and Bas Mellis, some locals here, obviously all flying the flag for Holland. Frank Karsten in the Hall of Fame leading his troops into battle there. We'll be checking in with him a little bit later, because right now, once these players get underway on our front table, it's all about the Triple H game here.
In the back, it's actually a 7-0 battle.
Frank Karsten and his team 7-0 so far, Simon.
Against the Brits in the yellow shirt.
So the Belgians you can see on the screen, Branko Narik, he's already snagged 3 GP top 8s. Pascal Vieren and Peter Vieren both have, one for Pascal and 2 GP top 8s for Peter Vieren. These guys are going to get underway right now, seeing as things are all done and dusted in the feature match area. Play is going to begin. So let's get to it. Down to the feature match area. It's time for round number 8. Welcome, my friends, to live streaming coverage of GP Rotterdam. My intense pleasure to welcome you back into the booth. Riley Knight alongside Simon Goertzen, the Pro Tour champion. Simon, my friend, we've got Belgium. We've got some Belgium nationals here, represented proudly by Branko Nainrich and his friends in Pascal and Peter Vieren. But they're up against an absolutely mighty team here, involving the Pro Tour champion Alexander Hain and 2 of his mates here, Mike Ron and Rich Hohen. These guys have been up and down limited GPs, team limited GPs for years and years and years, and we're expecting big things from them today.
I didn't check the stats, but if you ask me, they are the most accomplished team limited players in this room.
Certainly their resume is enormously impressive. Ron winning 3 team events so far. Alexander Hain has also won one of them in this team, and Rich Hohen has also won 2 others. So these guys really know their way around a team sealed deck event. We see Micron opening things up with an Ether Theorist. He's on the blue-green combination here in a Long Tusk Cub to follow up. This is a combination we've seen a lot of today, Simon. It's been surprisingly good.
Yes, and very synergistic, which is one of the keys to the team sealed format. Micron is, his deck has a lot of very powerful cards. Most of them are gold cards, actually. He has both the uncommon and the mythic rare from the two color cards.
Yeah, in an earlier game we actually saw 2 copies of Rashmi, the Eternity's Crafter, come down, and he just gained a ton of value off this card. And in addition to that, an Imperial Voyager or 2 to slam into the skies. But the Eternity's Crafter really impressed me. Blue is a card, a color that's been a little bit maligned in this limited format. But I tell you what, it really shows its colours in the sealed.
Yeah, and you can actually see how these attuned with ethers are threatening to just power up a long tusk cup that red-green will have big trouble dealing with.
Yeah, this long tusk cup already threatening to become a 4-4, or sorry, excuse me, a 5-5, thanks to the energy that Huron has already accumulated. And you can see here Huron making it a 3-3. Might be worried about a harness lightning here, but he's going to bite the bullet and go up to a 4-4. Nijnrink with nothing to say about that, and this is already looking to be a difficult position for the Belgian here.
I agree with this line. Just go for it. There's nothing that red-green can do so easily against a high toughness creature. And Ron had basically nothing to fear.
So removal from red-green, often relying on cards like Harness Lightning, Welding Sparks, Chandra's Pyrohelix, these sorts of things, in addition, of course, to Hunt the Weak, which we've seen do a lot of work. But, I mean, all of these cards either deal with creatures that are smaller or require a board presence of your own. So a tricky spot here for Branko Nijnrink already. Hitting his land drops, but again without a play. Simon Gertzen, what is going on here?
Very surprising not to see any place, especially because, there is not even an enabler for anything that would make sense here.
Unbelievable stuff here as the long tusk cup goes up to a 6-6 now. I mean, Nijnrink's just taking it by the look of things. Oh, he's got a response here. What's it going to be? Oh, look at this one. Here we go. So this is the reason for passing with 4 untapped mana here. This card can certainly throw a spanner in the works.
With exactly 5 cards in hand as well.
Yeah, Fateful Showdown really taking... sorry, we're going to have a look at exactly how many things have gone here, with 5 cards being discarded to the Fateful Showdown. So that's one way of refreshing a hand that might be a bit loosey-goosey.
So had Mike not used the pump effect, this would have actually gone terribly wrong for Branko.
Yeah.
You can't fault Mike for not playing around that particular rare, though.
No, of course. Fateful Showdown, not a card that's going to be very high on everyone's radar all the time, but right now it's been a bit of a blowout here for Huron as he got his long tusk cup that he'd put a fair bit of investment into. It's been removed very tidily, but Arborback Stomper has come to replace it.
Yeah, and that's a very good replacement, of course. He has Branko down to 13. He's ahead on board. Has spent all his energy, though. So Mike will remember that Fateful Showdown for the next 1 or 2 games.
I'm sure it'll be at the top of his mind as he considers how to play out the next couple of games. As we see some of the cards discarded, I can see a land amongst there. It looks like a Nature's Way as well. Reparin Tiger as well.
Yeah, two very good cards hitting the bin there, and ultimately not too many lands. So Branko can hopefully find enough gas left in his upcoming draw steps.
Other cards like Ornamental Courage, however, cards that maybe you don't mind discarding so much. That's why maybe he's got him in his deck. Got to have some bad cards to discard to the Fateful Showdown. And right now, Nijnrink is working on repairing the board a little bit with a Sage of Shayla's thing here, in addition to the Thriving Grubs.
Let's be absolutely clear here. Branko didn't want to discard these cards. He would have much preferred to use this card in the late game with only a bunch of lands in hand, basically getting a free windfall effect while killing a strong creature. But Mike's powerful start didn't give him that option.
Yeah, sort of forced his hand here as the Riparian Tiger comes down, a 4-4, gaining 2 energy for Micron. We've seen the Tiger already slice and dice today. It's been one of the really marquee cards of this tournament so far. Such an efficient body, a real threat. And Nijnrink is staring down at the eyes of the Tiger, and that is enough for him. As he packs it up, the Belgian is more or less forced to go to game 2 after an aggressive start from Micron. We didn't see any plays until turn 4 for Nijnrink, and you can't afford to do that in a format like this, Simon.
There is another big problem with this, how this game ended. Not only is Branko down a game, which is of course the most important fact, but also he didn't really see what Mike's deck is truly capable of.
Yeah.
He saw only energy-based aggression, which a lot of red-green decks are mostly doing, or blue-green decks are doing, but his deck is a lot more late-game oriented than it seemed in that game.
We didn't see a whole lot of the tricks come out of the toolbox there for Micron, so he'll be happy knowing that some of his some of the things that are in store are going to still remain secret. As we move to Alexander Hayne, the Pro Tour champion, Pro Tour Avison Restored winner Alexander Hayne, who is sitting behind some pretty powerful cards here. We've got, of course, the Aerial Responder. We've got Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and here now, Elegant Edgecrafters.
Yeah, that of course stolen from his opponent's deck and cast with ignoring the
mana cost or the mana requirements, thanks to Gonti, the Lord of Luxury. So as a 2/3 Death Touch, Gonti isn't necessarily the most impressive card, but the fact that the Otherborn can snag a card off the top of your opponent's library and then play it. 4 mana 2/3 Death Touch also means that a respectable body able to get in for some points of damage and later on make a favourable trade.
Oh, I love this card. It's really potent and doesn't ask too much from you.
And it's back to Hayne now with Viera not making any attacks.
It's funny to think of Alexander Hayne as the least decorated player in this team.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to team results.
That's true. I mean, 10 GP top 8s of his own, but again, only one title to his name, one with the team. Two others. He sat next to me, and I've been lucky enough to interview him after he won, of course, the GP in Poland, Krakow, last year. Looks like Gonti's going to come in again. Presumably joined by the Vampire Whitehawk, indeed. And now we're going to see some blocks lined up. Of course, the hidden mode on the High Spire Artisan. It does have reach. We've seen people forget that to their peril. And it looks like Vieren's had enough of this Gonti as well.
Viren, smartly, I presume, choosing to keep his 5 casting cost artifact here. Because he wants to draw additional cards.
Ether Meltdown now, put on the stack. Vieren. It's going to gain 2 energy. Give a creature or a vehicle. -4, -0. But what has Hayne got to say about this? Oh, it's Subtle Strike. Here we go. Look at this. So -1 somewhere and a +1/+1 counter somewhere else. And this is going to wreak a little bit of havoc here with Vieren's plans.
So in that spot, it was a 2/3 prowess, correct? Or is that's the prowess creature, right? Ah, no, I was mistaken. I thought it was Vidalton Blade Master, but it wasn't. Sorry, never mind.
Oh, the Janjeet Sentry there. No, that's Janjeet Sentry, of course, generating energy and tapping creatures down, paying 2 energy to tap these down. And Fragmentize is a nice little answer to the Ether Meltdown. I was confused about Hayne's line there. It seemed like a interesting way to... saving the Gonti there seemed pretty unnecessary in the face of that. But Fragmentize is a nice, clean answer to the Meltdown.
That's why I was confused as well. Why would you save your 0/3 Death Touch creature?
But look at this. Blah, blah, blah. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. It is a Confiscation Coup, which has taken the Aerial Responder out of Alexander Hayne. And now Vieren is sitting behind a 3/4 Flying Vigilance lifelink, and Hayne will be kicking himself for putting that counter on the top there. But, of course, Confiscation Coup, not a card you can really play around. So many powerful blue rares in this set. The commons and uncommons kind of let down the power levels overall here, but Confiscation Coup, really one of the most powerful rares you can open. Mind Control effect, always huge, and Hayne with the rather indignant sort of duty now to use a removal spell on his own creature. Never a spot you want to be in. Now some attacks for Hayne. He's on 31, gained a bunch of life from the aerial responder. But Vieren has something to say about it, and it's going to be select for inspection.
And that's absolutely huge.
That is disgusting.
Because it's targeting his own creature.
That is just absolutely bonkers.
Pascal is basically running circles.
Yeah, this is one of the most ferocious dismantlings I've seen in a while here with Confiscation Coup, and now the select for inspection, just oozing value for Vieren. Hayne keeping his composure and keeping his cool. He's going to play a Glint Sleeve Artisan. It's going to come down as a 3/3.
Keep in mind that Hein is facing 2 cards a turn on Viren's side of the board.
Yeah, let's not forget about that. The console of innovation here. This guy is doing a lot of work for Pascal Vieira, and Padim allowing him to draw an extra card every turn because of the Bastion Mastodon. Vieira more permanence than sense here as we see them sprawl out off the screen. Very handily moving them over for us. Thanks very much for that. And Hein really with his back against the wall, giving his opponent a tip or two as to how to manage the permanence on his battlefield. And Viren ships. So that elegant Edgecrafter did come down, making 2 1/1s for Viren, all of them hexproof. And Dund Operative now the card for Hein. Servo Exhibition, adding to Hein's side of the board. He's got a nice buffer with his life total, but Viren really in the driver's seat here, drawing extra cards, strong battlefield, and adding to it now with a Glint-Ness Crane. So the cards don't stop here.
A 17-point life advantage is not as impressive when you're on 31.
And when your opponent has just snagged a Sky Sovereign from the Glint-Ness Crane immediately, that's going to thunder into play. We'll see where this Lightning Bolt gets directed, and it is at Gonti, the Lord of Luxury. So the Lord of Luxury consigned to the scrap heap here.
This deck is a machine.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. I mean, we've had some pretty weird edge cases come up with the Select for Inspection, but still, Hein has just been outgunned at every step of the way here. This Sky Sovereign's going to take over the game, and no mistake.
It has hexproof as well.
Yeah. Just to make things even worse for the Canadian. Here's an attack. Dund Operative obviously having Death Touch.
Hoping for a block with the Skyship.
But instead, the Edgecrafters just trades off there. Viera not unhappy to do that, considering the servos are still sticking around. How does Hein wriggle his way out of this this problem here? Even something like a removal spell for the Sky Sovereign won't do it.
No, he needs a miracle.
If there's one man who can find a miracle on the top of his deck, it's definitely Alexander Hein. Edgecrafters, number 2 coming down here. But this time it's coming down as a 5/6. Hein helpfully pointing out that his opponent had overpaid. And now we're going to see these servos jump into the Sky Sovereign, and across comes the Consulate flagship, bolting down the Glintsleaf Artisan on its way to Alexander's face. Hein down to 25. Viren continues to play out his hand. He obviously can afford to, drawing 2 cards a turn. But I think it's only a matter of time before Alexander Hein reads the writing on the wall.
Hein's deck is also super powerful.
Yeah.
He's played so many high-powered cards. If this was a normal fair game of Magic, the sheer power level of his uncommons and rares would have carried him to victory easily. But what he's facing is a almost constructed level of synergy.
Restoration Gearsmith number 2 now for Alexander Hein. I think that took back Gonti. And now we're seeing more attacks in the air. And Restoration Gearsmith number 1 is going to eat it to the Sky Ship, to the Sky Sovereign, sorry.
Good news for Hein. Rich Hohen has closed out his match 2-0.
Oh, the other Viren obviously not as favoured as his brother here. So this one here with it all about wrapped up, really, that Sky Sovereign more or less determined to power through to victory 4 of Pascal Vieira. And it's time to head back to our first table, Table A, between Branko Nayrink and Micron, just in time to see the handshake, because that was the deciding game, my friends. Micron picking up the second game very handily, and look at that, an absolute annihilation of 2 Belgians, while Pascal Vieira was doing his best to keep the Belgian ship above water. Unfortunately for him, the Triple H team has taken it home.
Hein also undefeated this round.
Yes, an important thing to note for him. He'll be like, no, it's done. Still going for it. There we go. Look at that. Alexander Hein with no fear. He's going to continue to play. Obviously, the outcome of this game is now it is just a dead rubber. The tiebreakers aren't impacted by the outcome here, Simon. But obviously, Hayne looking to give his opponent the opportunity to continue playing some of the sweetest cards in the set here.
Yeah, sometimes, when your opponent is going off, let them have some fun.
Looks like another tidy little removal spell taking care of the second Restoration Gearsmith there.
I mean, Pascal can barely hold all the cards in his hand, or all the.
Okay. No, let's just keep going here. A malfunction is finally what gets Alexander Hayne to concede.
What did he malfunction? Like, was it
I think it was a servo.
or was it just slammed down on the table and?
Just still got all this, mate.
You choose.
Yeah, check this out. I'll let you pick the target. That's not a problem for me, my friend. But unfortunately, even after such a huge performance from Pascal Vieren, not quite enough to get his team over the line, and the Triple H team win very, very handily again, as we said, in straight sets. It's time to head to our Time Walk match now. Simon Gertzen, good news for you. We've got more magic coming from the back tables, and it is Dr. Frank Karsten against Steve Baines. You mentioned that this English team also sitting at 7-0, in addition to the Flying Dutchman and his compatriots here. So we'll see how things shake out. Obviously, both of these teams will be looking to head into day number 2 with an undefeated record. And this is where this dream is going to be made or broken. Karsten looked like he might have mulliganed here, as we see a Scry center card below decks. He's opening his account with a mountain. Steve Baines, beautiful full art John Avon lands here. He's going to open things up with a Sage of Shayla's Claim. 3 energy for Baines, as it's back to Dr. Frank. I did get a peek of the pool that Karsten opened along with his teammates, and I can tell you it did look very, very deep, especially in green. I'm excited to see the green deck that's been played by this Dutch trio, because I saw multiple Tigers, multiple Rhinos, a couple of Hunt the Weeks, a lot of stuff going on there. Speedway Fanatic, the first play for Karsten here.
No play by Baines. That could be a problem if there's a freighter to follow it up. We haven't seen too many freighters.
No, that's true. I mean, these cards, this is the sort of card that really shines in limited decks, especially no color requirements, aggressive posturing from the trains all the time here. But Karsten obviously with plans for the Fanatic, as he's not interested in trading it off here. And here's a Foundry Inspector. That's going to help Karsten play out his artifacts. He's obviously a man known for his enjoyment of playing colorless cards. And Baines again without a turn 4 play. Not a lot coming down at instant speed in these colours. Something like a Sky Whaler shot perhaps.
Yeah, when you're hoping for your opponent to play a high-powered creature, and then they usually don't.
Always the way. Karsten considers his options here. You can imagine using the context clues available to us that he'll be playing a fair number of artifacts. Foundry Inspector at its best, obviously, in a deck crammed with brown cards.
And if Steve Baines had a good removal spell like Appetite for the Unnatural, I assume he would have used it during his turn.
Yeah, obviously you want to keep your opponent off the mana advantage that the Inspector can provide. Karsten obviously with some decisions to make here. He shifts around his permanents.
Could be really interesting if he's holding one of the more expensive vehicles in the format, because imagine crewing it with both of your creatures, giving it haste, just attacking for 8 or whatever.
Just getting in there. We'll see what Karsten can get here. Still fiddly farting around with those lands.
Deliberate player, our commentary colleague.
Yes, to say the least. Certainly someone who likes to take the optimal line. And we're going to see it's Subtle Strike. -1/-1 for the Sage. And a +1/+1 counter on... Wait for it, ladies and gentlemen. The big reveal. It is the Inspector. Little flourish there as Frank taps the Inspector. And after that prolonged decision-making, we see Sky Whaler shot.
Thank you for growing your creature. No, it was a 3-2 already.
I think it was dying anyway. You slice it as a 3-2, but unfortunately for Carsten, maybe that's what he was playing around. Maybe he wants that Fnatic to stick around.
That would be some really deep planning.
I mean, if there's anyone who can do it, it is the man who does maths for fun. Thriving Rhino now. And Carsten with his 4th land drop. Missed a land drop last turn, so he'll be looking to here continue developing his board. With 4 mana, what's he got?
Spontaneous Artist, so that's actually a really good on-curve play here. The Rhino hasn't grown yet, so he keeps the initiative.
Yeah, that's true. Getting across for 3 now. Nice little hit here for Carsten. Baines with 5 energy in his reserve and 6 lands now. Certainly a lot of options available to him as to how this game's going to develop. Rhino comes in. Turn 2 of those energy counters into a +1/+1 counter, and here is the power of the thriving creatures. We've still got at least one more attack lined up with this Rhino. Carsten takes it, and now it's a Hunt the Weak. Oof, look at that. So Baines continues to develop the board. He's in a very commanding position as Frank finds his 5th land.
Important sequencing here, sequencing detail to play the Hunt the Weak after combat. Otherwise, the Speedway Fnatic could have traded with your huge Rhino.
Yeah, sacrificing 1 point of damage to Carsten's noggin, but at the end of the day, protecting the Rhino from being blocked as the Speedway Fnatic gets in for another 2. And here's a Wayward Giant.
Not bad.
No, a nice response here to the 4/5 charging. Oh, sorry, Thriving Rhino. But the Rhino's going to grow again.
Yeah, it's and even if the energy wasn't available, it would be a super scary block to make.
Plenty of things can come out of white-green decks. Built to last. Blossoming defense. In comes the Rhino. Carsten takes it. That's a fair. It's a pretty big hit there.
Now that you say it, and it has been very apparent all today, and in this format, the combat tricks are not only very good, but they're also very cheap. So that's what makes these cards so powerful and so prone to creating blowouts, because it's only the 1 mana that you invest.
Fairgrounds Warden now coming down, exiling the Wayward Giant. But you're absolutely right in that. I mean, one of the key things about effective combat tricks is that they are cheap.
Exactly. It's not about, like, they don't have to give +4/+4. They don't have to draw a card, because then suddenly you would be looking at combat tricks that cost 3 or 4 mana, and then it's a completely different game you're playing with these kind of cards.
Yeah, you want to be able to invest a small amount of mana into combat tricks so you can then have a follow-up play.
Or you want to be able to keep mana open without it looking suspicious and without it disrupting your curve.
Yeah, that's another great point.
So there are actually 2 advantages to cheap instant combat tricks. Cheap instants in general, but combat tricks in particular.
Spontaneous Artist coming in for another 3. Here's Thriving Ibex as well. We're going to see the Rhino continue to grow here. That may be Baines' plan as he continues to bolster his energy reserve.
From the looks of it, Carsten is just losing this race by a significant margin. His Speedway Fnatic has not impressed me this game at all. Without vehicles to crew, a 2-mana 2/1 haste is not what you want in this format.
Something tells me that Carsten was looking to keep it around in order to crew some vehicles later on, but we just haven't seen it. Maybe his draw steps haven't treated him particularly kindly here.
I know what Frank is capable of, so I wouldn't be surprised if he can pull out a victory out of thin air, for example, by hijacking a huge Rhino and just swinging for lethal out of nowhere.
That would be a characteristically Carsten move here. But as it is now, the Speedway Fnatic has jumped in front of that Rhino.
Yeah, and that's usually not a good sign.
No way, no how. Carsten with 6 mana. Only a few cards left in hand for the Flying Dutchman. 3, to be precise. And it's Thriving Grubs. We've seen this in the hand for quite a while. 2 energy. And now Thriving Rats. So almost all 5 thriving creatures out. We've just got just missing the turtle.
I doubt it's going to arrive. Sorry, Riley.
No, well, for the sake of completion, I'm sorry to say it's probably not happening. And look at this, an attack with the grubs, the spontaneous artist giving the grubs haste.
That's a really nice move by Frank, utilizing all his resources here, energy, mana, and he's holding the one combo trick that you want in this spot. Okay, I'm getting a blank stare by my colleague here. Rush of Vitality.
Could have been anything, mate. Could have been a Harness Lightning. Rush of Vitality here we see now. +1/+0, lifelink and indestructible means that the Ibex hits the bin, but the grubs do not. And that's a nice buffer to Karsten's life total as well. 4 life here, and now he can really afford to race.
Yeah, exactly. He's used Spontaneous Artist, which is usually not a card that's on anybody's radar, as something you would actively want to activate, apart from maybe the first time it comes into play. He's leveraged that really well. And despite his creatures being a notch smaller than his opponents, he has somehow turned the race around.
And now Baines with a difficult decision here. Those creatures that he's got obviously at a size to make some pretty nice blocks here. Karsten Hellbent as well, but no, Baines is going to get on the offensive here.
The problem is if he doesn't keep pressing, then Karsten can build up more and more of a board, and is also threatening hasty stuff. He's threatening a lot of things if the game goes longer. However, if Baines can close out this game in the next 2 turns, maybe play a strong blocker, then it's a different story.
Baines has been trying to press his advantage from a very early position here. He's obviously got a few things to think about, but if there's one person, as you said, Simon, who can worm his way to victory, it is Frank Karsten. And he's already on the way to do that. That Spontaneous Artist plus the Thriving Grubs attack there has really maybe been the pivotal turning point of this game.
You know what we haven't seen a lot of this game?
Tell me.
Rares.
That's very true.
These guys are 7-0.
Yeah.
And they are battling with Thriving Rats and Spontaneous Artists. And
yeah. Speaks to the skill of the players involved as Karsten draws. 6 mana, 2 creatures that are relevant at this stage. Those grubs aren't going to be doing much here.
To be fair, the Thriving Rats are also need a little bit of help.
Oh, here we go. Malphis squad coming down. 3/1. Menace with Fabricate. And it looks like it is the servo option that Karsten's taking. And here's an attack. Wow, look at this. Here's an attack for 4. Oh, sorry, for 6, I should say.
Spontaneous Artist.
Yeah, getting it done.
It's crazy.
So spontaneous. And the Malphis squad comes in. That servo looks like it'll be back on blocking duty. And the Thriving Rats as well, in case Baines has a removal spell. Baines down to 1 here. How has Karsten done this? What an absolute magician.
He's conjured things out of thin air.
And he's managed to win it. Steve Baines without a response, without an answer to the questions Karsten asked. And once again, leveraging some cards, Simon Gertzen, that you noticed weren't these sort of absolute rip-roaring rares or anything else like that, but he's managed to get himself a W.
If you had asked me what would decide the first game of the 7-0 bracket, it wouldn't have been Thriving Rats, Spontaneous Artists, and Rush of Vitality.
No, definitely not. I mean, that was some really, really impressive maneuvering from Frank Karsten, and Steve Baines will be scratching his head in disbelief here, I think, as he consults with the cards that he perhaps is thinking about boarding in. Really impressive stuff. Wow, I mean, if there's one person that we expected from it is a Hall of Famer with several decades of Magic playing experience under his belt, but still, I mean, you can't help but applaud the performance from Frank Karsten there.
Frank is not the team captain of the Netherlands this year.
No.
Thomas Hendricks.
Thomas Hendricks, of course, a very well-respected and very talented player from the Netherlands, will be leading the Dutch into battle next weekend. Karsten cheering from the sidelines, I'm sure. Interesting to see the way that the games have panned out on the other tables as well. Brent Voss up a game against Tom Law, but Yao Choka has come up against Bas Mellis 1-0 for Yao. And it's now Voss versus Law here as we move to game number 2 for these. Voss will be looking to capitalise on an early advantage. Ninth Bridge Patrol coming in for 1. Pretty unassuming card, but a card that can get a lot of work done sometimes. But Glensleeve Artisan, not a card that needs much of an excuse to go into your deck.
No, but I like how the patrol really gains from the fact that you can build a deck around it from a lot of available cards.
Now, Law does not seem to have played a spell all game, and once again we see the classic 4-mana go with the Sky Whaler shot up.
Yeah, he'll need a Cloud Chaser to buy back a bit of tempo and prepare himself for the late game.
Blue-white is not a colour combination we've seen get a lot of love this weekend. Of course, we've talked a little bit about the sweetest of all the uncommon gold cards, the Cloud Blazer. Be interesting to see if Law has one. You'd have to think so.
If I see blue and if I see islands and plains, I almost assume that they have it, because there are so little reasons to actually go blue-white.
Yeah, blue-green has been one of the darlings of this tournament, and the white cards have often been paired with more aggressive options in black and in red.
Also, I've now seen a lot of matches, and I've been super impressed by blue-green, and the blue-white decks have not had the same level of synergy.
Etherstorm Rock coming down, and Law has been rewarded for his patience here, because Etherstorm Rock is a card that threatens to take over a game in and of itself. 1 energy counter, the only thing that remains for Brett Voss after playing this hugely impactful rare. And Tom Law once again. Oh, here we go. This is an interesting situation. The Ninth Bridge Patrol trigger does appear to have been missed. I think these players are going to have a quick discussion about how this works out here, because the Sky Whaler shot removed the Etherstorm Rock from the battlefield, which means the Ninth Bridge Patrol would be eligible. It would be a lucky winner of a +1/+1 counter, but it doesn't look like Voss did it.
From everything that I saw, it seemed pretty apparent that Brent just missed the trigger, and just remembered when Tom was in his draw step.
I think I'd agree with you there, Zimon. Tom Law wasn't playing at a particularly ferocious pace, not playing slowly by any means, but I think the time had sort of come and gone for Brent Voss, but obviously it's in the much more capable hands of a judge here who's going to sort this out. Voss pleading his case. Tom Law playing at a respectable clip, but not at a pace that would really restrict an opponent from putting a trigger onto the stack.
No, it's now really a question of the communication that happened, because the Sky Whaler shot was clearly played on end step against a tapped out opponent. So, for example, did Brent pass the turn or not? So did Tom just scry and then move into his turn, or did Brent acknowledged that he was done with the turn?
Find out on the next episode. Oh, what a cliffhanger this is indeed. But it looks like a judge has been involved here. We'll see how things pan out as this call gets resolved by the judge in question. Obviously, we're not privy to the discussion going on down there. No microphones in the feature match area as Tom Law's cards explode out of his hands there.
I mean, that's what we have the judges for. So I don't think that any of the English players are on their World Magic Cup teams, but I actually don't know the English team this time around. I do know, as I said, that Frank is not on the team. He will be helping out with text coverage next weekend. Thomas Hendricks went undefeated at GP Warsaw and missed the top 8.
Yes, he put a brilliant string of undefeated appearances together, but unfortunately wasn't able to turn that into a top 8 of performance. The Dutch captain going, I think, X0-4?
11-0-4.
11-0-4 for the Dutch captain there, so he'll be looking to maybe put together a couple more wins in the WMC.
You know, it's always unfortunate to lose out on top 8 on tiebreakers, but if you have 4 draws, I don't feel too bad.
No, the sympathy was really limited, I think, around the room for Thomas Hendricks, and he was having a good old laugh at himself for it as well. You'll be able to catch all the action from the WMC in 1 week's time. I tell you what, this is just the warm-up, the prelude here, as Frank Karsten, again with a characteristic flourish, gets in with a Speedway fanatic. These guys off to the races here for game number 2. Karsten picking up the first game.
Frank might come off as a bit dry from time to time, but he surely has fun when playing Magic.
If we're going to speak very honestly for just a second, Zimon, one of the greatest difficulties I have with this job is when friends like Frank Karsten are on camera, because I think we get a very different experience of him, and he, for me, and again, this might be crossing some kind of a line, but he really does represent everything that is great about this game. Obviously, it's very easy for me to say that as a friend of his, but he is one of the worthiest members of the Hall of Fame. Diligent, hardworking, love of the game, friendly, approachable, and just a stone-cold master.
Enthusiastic and communicative. That's something that are important for me, because he's really making people better at this game through his work.
But right now, he's attacking with a 2-1 haste for 2.
And is playing another 2-1.
So, a mighty wizard, to be sure.
That's the best part. I'm sure he was just joyfully picking up this deck.
Yeah, wouldn't have been a debate for him. Steve Baines, on the other hand, seems to have a pretty solid green-white deck. He might still be reeling about how he lost before, because the quality of his card seems very high.
Definitely higher than that of Frank's. They didn't seem through the roof or anything.
No, but still a solid amount of synergy. I mean, the Rhino by itself obviously does a huge amount of damage. We saw some solid removal, Skywhaler shot coming down.
Yeah, and always when you lose to these kind of effects like combat tricks, haste, activations, you always second guess yourself. Did I maybe give my opponent too much of a chance to beat me here? This is what makes this game so difficult. I mean, Frank obviously just gave his teammates all the good cards, and then they left him with a bunch of commons to sort out a deck.
Yeah, and he's managed to pull that draft chaff into a 40-card pile that's got him to a 7-0 position alongside his teammates, who have obviously done their fair share of the heavy lifting. Pima outright at the play now for Baines. Looks like we're going to have a servo token enter the battlefield in addition to the 3/3 trample. And it's back to Karsten now with his brave army of 2/1s.
Yeah. Steve has put himself in a really good position against a potential spontaneous artist. Having a 4/4 Art Rider would have done the same, but it would have been more risky, because then a single removal spell could have meant that he would fall back in the race. Now it's more about trading cards, but that should be in the green-white deck's favor. Actually, Carson is holding the spontaneous artist, and that's maybe something that's good to remember. If you're playing such a matchup where your creatures are generally stronger, you are favored to win the late game. So racing is not always what you want to be doing, even if you're dealing more damage to your opponent.
Karsten now up to 3 energy. It's going to give the artist haste, and in come these energy-based red creatures. So a 3/2 and a 3/3 coming in. Baines doesn't have any phenomenal blocks here.
No, and a difficult decision as well. I'm not sure which of these creatures is scary. If there are 2 more energy coming down, suddenly the grubs can grow again. If there are only single portions of energy coming down, suddenly you're facing more haste damage. No blocks.
No blocks, says Baines. Not interested in trading off there, even after having lost a spontaneous artist. Baines is going to keep things as they are. The question for him as well, what's in his hand, that's going to depend. His next action is going to depend heavily on the options available to him. You can see at least 2 lands there. Jeez, he's playing those cards close to his chest.
But why do you not block in this spot? A 3/3 trample, how much better is it going to be than trading with an opposing 3/3? I can understand not wanting to trade with the grubs because you have a tapped aviary mechanic, but that seems exactly like the points of damage you wouldn't want to take against a deck that just beat you with
Nickels and dimes.
Haste creatures that of no particular power.
Yeah, a sock full of 5-cent coins is Karsten's weapon here. As we see the Rhino come in once again, the Pima Outrider and the Servo joining the party. Baines choosing not to activate the Thriving Rhino here.
Interesting choice, but he feels that a 3/4 is already a power and toughness combination which dominates most of what Black-Red can offer.
Yeah, I think that's true. Another spontaneous artist in the hands of Karsten here.
But also on 6 life himself, so is Steve really on 16? Didn't he take 6 damage from last turn's attack? Let's see if
Yeah, the life bar might be a little bit behind here when it comes to Steve Baines. We'll see if things get updated as Carsten considers his next move. Once again, a very deliberate player. We've mentioned that already. But the Hall of Famer here will have some sort of a vision for how he's going to win this game, a pathway, a plan that he wants to execute.
Oh, absolutely. And one crucial aspect about taking your time to think is you have to know at which point you need to really go into the tank. You can't do it every single turn, because then you're just going to end up having far too many draws, and you're also not using your resources, like your mental resources, efficiently. But knowing when to trust your intuition and when to really start the engines, that's a skill that's underestimated.
And I think that was really evident when we saw Carsten spend, a good 30 seconds to a minute having a think about that turn last time that really turned the game around. He sort of set himself on a course. He planned out how it was going to go. And this may be that point here. And, that's not to say that Carsten is definitely going to win after having... that's not that'd be a magical power I think we'd all like. Sit and think for a minute and then win a game. But I think that this is the point at which he's deciding exactly which rabbit hole he wants to dive into.
Yeah, if it was that easy, I would just sit down and think for 2 minutes and win two games.
Twice as many games, that's right.
This is not an easy spot. He's looking at the two rhinos, and now it's Carsten's problem that he won't be able to block them efficiently. He might also be forced to pass the turn, representing some combat tricks, and then it's Steve's. In Steve's position, I would be looking to maybe only increase my board presence and not do any attacking.
So Baines down to 10. No attacks that turn, but Simon, you were right in saying that those life totals hadn't been updated, and the Englishman is down to 10 life now.
Yeah.
Carsten, as you said, had a good old think about it and then shipped the turn. So obviously something going on here. His opponent isn't just going to think, this isn't like Magic Online where he got up maybe to make himself a sandwich.
So I have a comment on that, but first let me talk about combat tricks in this particular spot.
Comment on sandwiches?
Yes.
I really do want to hear this one, so let's get this through nice and quick.
If Steve attacks here, he's giving Frank the perfect opportunity to cast cards like Rush of Vitality or other combat tricks. If he doesn't and just deploys a creature, Frank will be facing exactly the same problem next turn. So this is a situation where you have to realize that now is the time to step on the brakes, even though you really want to deal these final points of damage. You have to basically make your opponent lose this mana that he didn't spend in his main phase.
Yeah, that's a good point. Carsten didn't pass the turn by accident. Carsten obviously has a plan for how this turn is going to go out, and by not playing creatures, there's not going to be a flash creature. There's not a Restoration Angel coming down into turn here. And a smart move from Baines would be to make Carsten sacrifice his turn, sacrifice his mana, essentially, and that's a great play here from Baines.
It's a great play. It would have been even better had he had something to deploy, and I'm sure he would have had he had the chance.
So here now it's Subtle Strike, and that's not a very high-value Subtle Strike here.
But it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have been against an attacking Baines.
Yeah, so Baines reading the writing really, really well. Now, Simon, you did promise the viewing audience and my good self comment on sandwiches, and I'm very keen to hear it.
So if this was a Magic Online match and you had just spent your time thinking about this turn and then you had passed it, what do you do?
What do you do? You type in the chat, sorry, phone rang.
Yeah. That's it.
Mind games. It's all about getting up in the brain zone, Simon. Carsten now. Dund operative play for him. That comment proved to be a lot less sandwich-oriented than I hoped.
Well, you could also have said, sorry, I made myself a sandwich.
Odd time to make a sandwich, though. That's going to be raising alarm bells. Phone ringing, that happen to anyone.
Turn 4, time to make a sandwich.
Turn 4, sandwich making time. I don't know about that.
True. You have to think about the believability of the...
So many options to consider. Just like Baines here. As he has a look in his hand, I can see a revoke privileges. And it looks like that spontaneous artist is finally being locked up for their crimes. Going around vandalizing the city streets, that sort of behavior won't hold.
Yeah, Frank being a bit punished for having used his Subtle Strike already. But of course he also wanted to continue to deploy creatures. He didn't just want to hold up his combat trick or tricks. There might still be a Rush of Vitality, for example.
Carsten did show his opponent these tricks in the last game, so Baines will be cognizant of them. But the Pima outright is going to get in there all the same.
Also, they are somewhat crucial for his game plan.
Oh, look at this! Look at this! Carsten edges forward the thriving grubs here, and you can see he's poised. He's poised to make his next move.
Only the grubs though, not no double blocks to prevent the trample to him.
So Carsten takes one and trades off the grubs there. Both players nervously eyeing each other. A bit of a Mexican standoff there. As nothing further was played. Snare Thop to the draw for Carsten here. 4-mana 3/2 haste, flying as well.
But you can't play it while also holding up your 2-mana combat tricks. The 1-mana combat trick in red-black is of course built to smash, but that's only
not very good on your opponent's turn.
Exactly. Castable, yes.
If you really hate yourself, yes, indeed it is. Spontaneous Artist now. So Steve Baines knows he's in the clear when it comes to combat tricks. There are no removal spells or combat tricks, no instance that can come down for a single black mana.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like we talked earlier, Blossoming Defense, Ornamental Courage, Built to Last, but also Select for Inspection in blue.
Yep.
These are cards that can really mess up your plans.
Yeah, having the single Swamp Up means that you absolutely do not have an instant speed trick here. But any of the other, the point I think you're trying to make there, Zimon, is any of the other, one single mana of any other color could represent something very relevant. From, as you said, Ornamental Courage to Built to Smash. Well, that's not Built to Smash. But the 2-mana combat tricks really have defined a lot of combats in this format, and indeed throughout this tournament we've seen cards like, anything really. We've seen either Trade Winds, we've seen Impeccable Timing, we've seen Chandra's Pyrohelix making an impact.
I think the most difficult decision for Frank in this whole game was also the most subtle one. He had to decide whether he could continue to keep open mana because his opponent was not deploying any additional threats, or if he had to cast the Subtle Strike to free up 2 of his mana that he had to save otherwise, because the prospect of leaving up 4 mana every turn is a bit scary. But he might be paying a price for it, because now you see he doesn't, like, Subtle Strike would have been the perfect card on this board.
So, Rhino hits the bin. Juicy little 2-for-1 there for Steve Baines.
Triple block just to be on the safe side.
And now it's a Wayward Giant. So a 4/5 going to hopefully be a stabilization play in Frank's mind, but a Fairgrounds Warden means that no, sorry, that's all she wrote here, as Carsten, without any other option, is to pack him up. And Baines, really skillful navigation there. So impressed by his play. Obviously, very aware of how Carsten wanted to play that game, and for Carsten, the plan just didn't work out. Baines was his equal at that point.
Yeah, and Carsten had to make a difficult decision. Baines just realized immediately what he had to do to punish him for it, and this was really high level Magic. I really enjoyed this game.
So on your screen now, Brent Voss has got up in the first game against Tom Law here. We saw Law not really putting too much together in the first game. Authority of the Consuls has come down for him, however, this game. So all of Voss's creatures are entering the battlefield tapped. This match is poised in a pretty interesting position. Voss obviously with an advantage over Law in the first game, as Carsten and Baines are tied up in 1-1, and Yard Choker has got up 2-0 against Baz Mellis. Both of these teams will be desperate to move on to the last round of the game, last round of the day at X and O, but only one team's going to be able to do it. Gearshift Ace going to jump aboard the Bomat Bazaar Battle Bridge Barge. And the 5/5 is going to come in. Obviously with First Strike, going to make blocking an absolute nightmare for Law. Not that he's got great options as it stands. And Law now Nug for 5. See a Cloudblazer in Law's graveyard, so he's already on that value train.
I just had to check something, really. I had to get the deck list of Tom Law. What do you think? Authority of the Consoles. Is it a main deck or a sideboard card?
It's got to be a sideboard card.
Exactly. And that's, of course, because it's so good against the vehicle-powered decks. You just don't allow the cards that your opponent plays to accrue the vehicle. So effectively gaining haste, if you want. So a really nice, thoughtful addition.
Yeah.
By the Englishman.
Yeah, nice way to shore up perhaps a potential weakness here. Fragmentire's taking care of the barge. Looks like Voss hasn't forgotten his Ninth Bridge Patrol triggers this time around. And we're going to see it crew. That's very clever as well there. That's a nice little edge case. Did you see that Zimon here with Brent Voss activating the crew ability of the Bazaar, of the Bomat Bridge Bazaar Battlebot to make sure that the Ninth Bridge Patrol got a counter.
Is it just me, or do these cards have really complicated long names?
No. Really just roll off the tongue.
I know you have no trouble whatsoever, so.
Oh, well. 3 mana now for Voss. He's choosing his options here. He's got a couple of different cards in hand. You can see a rare amongst them. I've had the opportunity to play with this card in the past, and I can tell you it's an absolute house. Master Trinketeer, the army in a can. And there is the Master Trinketeer, a 3-cost 3/2. Gives gives servers and Thopters +1/+1, and it even makes 1/1 servos.
That's the
mana.
key card. It's one of the few mana sinks in the format.
Yeah, this is something we've talked about. The modules and then this guy as well. Some ways to spend excess mana. Powering out 2/2s. But my friends, we've had to jump back now to Frank Karsten playing Steve Baines because this match could be the decider.
And that's what we usually want to do in these kind of team limited or team tournaments. We will go to the match which could decide the end result.
Yeah, the outcome of the match at large here, because if Baines wins this match, or this game, I should say, against Frank Karsten, then it doesn't matter. It's a dead heat between Voss and Law, because Baines will have pushed his team over the top.
Lovely attack here by Frank.
Yeah.
2-1 into your opponent's 1-3.
Yeah, natural as anything, and follows it up now with the Weldfast Monitor.
He even added a little bit of hesitation to the mix to play with his opponent's head there.
Just masterful. Here's another Rhino here. And it's back to Karsten. Getting very close to time being called on this particular round here. As Karsten considers how he wants to navigate these turns. This might be the turn that he spends in the tank before powering through the next turns. 4 mana now. You can see Baines benefiting from the counsel of his teammate Yao Choka, who's already finished. And another fearless attack here from Frank Karsten, representing any range of tricks.
He's already represented it, and now it certainly wouldn't be a worse card to have. Subtle Strike could once again be absolutely devastating, but also Rush of Vitality would be huge. Oh, wow.
But Baines fearlessly blocking as well here.
But Baines must be holding a trick of his own.
We could see a Blossoming Defense. We could see an Ornamental Courage.
Actually, I think he has an Ornamental Courage in his hand. So he's saying, Frank is asked first to do something, and of course Frank cannot let this resolve.
No.
It would be disastrous.
Be a disaster here to throw away the Speedway Fanatic. So we're going to see Frank blinks first here. Karsten deploying a Rush of Vitality, +1/+0 lifelink, and Indestructible, of course, the most important part. And here is the Ornamental Courage, +1/+3, and untap it. Untap doesn't really matter here. But these creatures are just going to bounce off each other. Karsten may have a follow-up play, and yes, looks like it's going to be a Subtle Strike now. -1 -1 and +1/+1, and really eking a huge amount of value out of these cards here. That's a nice little bump up, especially for the Speedway Fanatic. That means that it can attack into the Warden again next turn.
Yeah. Planning ahead, not just trying to maximize damage, but also getting his creatures to a size that they actually make sense. Now, the real problem is he spent 2 of his combat tricks. Even though he spent them wisely, I see a problem with most of his creatures being 3 powered and not stronger. So there could be an issue in the future with getting through.
Console Shield Guard the play now for Steve Baines, the 4-mana 3/4. 2 energy, and you can pay 1 when it attacks to give another creature indestructible. It doesn't have indestructible or anything, but it can certainly help another creature get there.
Now you already see the problem. If this had been a 3/3 instead of a 3/4, we could have seen a spontaneous artist, an attack with everything. Baines takes 6, loses, treads his creature, but instead it's a 3/4, and it severely restricts Karsten's aggressive options.
So we see Spycide Infiltrator, a 3-mana 3/2 come down. That seems to be the name of the game for Frank Karsten. 2-mana 2/1s and 3-mana 3/2s here, as Baines plays a Thriving Ibex and shifts the turn. So his shields are certainly up. He's got some big fat butts on his side of the battlefield. And here is the Spontaneous Artist, and once again Frank with no good attacks. Back to Baines.
And Baines is not feeling too badly here, because he knows that the most scary things he has to consider are already taken care of. Also, 11 life is nothing to scoff at.
Thriving Ibex now. Comes in as a 3/5. That could pose a problem here for the Dutchman. No good blocks to line up with his battlefield full of 3/2s and 3/3s.
Well, but maybe a block with everything. It's a 3/5. It's not going to take down more than 1 of your creatures on its own, and it could take down 2 with a trick, but it will die anyway. So at least you wouldn't have to deal with a 3/5 on defense.
Sure.
Because I don't see how you want to get through if you have already fired away so much of your potential to break through. I'm not saying that was wrong, what we saw on turn 4, I believe it was. It was just the cards he used at that point in time, he knew would also be important at later stages for different reasons. Less for this kind of escalating combat trick on the stack situation that we saw, but more for a simple let me attack this turn.
Well, Karsten isn't going to block, as it turns out. Had a good old think about it. And Baines now playing the Fairgrounds Trumpeter, which is going to grab a +1/+1 counter. In addition to a Hyena. Trusty Companion coming down as a 3/2 Vigilance. Can't attack by itself. Little gun shy there. But certainly if you let the dog loose, I guess it's not really a dog.
Also, I don't know who let it out.
No.
I really
who let the hyenas out doesn't have quite the same ring to it.
I really like Trusty Companion, but I'm one of the few people, I believe.
Yeah, not a card that's impressed me, I have to say. Consul Shieldmate can hit the bin. Struck by lightning.
So this is the turn where Karsten got rid of the 4 toughness blocker, and also the Ibex is tapped. So if you want to make something happen, this is it.
So an attack here for 12 now, plus the ping from the 3/2.
And no activation on Weldfast Monitor. So maybe a follow-up, maybe another combat trick, but maybe also just not wanting to give away that you don't have anything else.
So we see the Companion on the Spycide Infiltrator, and we see the Trumpeter on the Weldfast Monitor. And looks like Karsten may have something to follow this up. And is this another subtle strike? No.
It's another rush of vitality.
Another rush of vitality coming down here. So that's number 2 for Karsten. So the Infiltrator sticks around.
Yeah. The Ibex has 5 toughness now. So Karsten didn't really have to save it for a 4 toughness creature on this board.
Karsten obviously valuing the the Infiltrator there, as it has the ability to ping for 1, but Bastion Mastodon means that once again Karsten's attacking options have been sorely restricted here.
But if Frank had shown as a vehicle at any point during this match, he could just start using the Spireside Infiltrator to ping down his opponent.
Thriving Grubs now.
And time does become an issue at some point, round time.
Yes, the end of the round drawing ever nearer here as these two players try to find an outcome. And you can see Brent Voss and Tom Law have tidied things up at 1-1. So this game poised on a knife edge, this match poised on a knife edge really, Simon Goertzen, I think it's fair to say. These players really with a lot to play for here. Such a confidence boost to move into the second day with an undefeated record gives you a lot of breathing space and a really good platform to run at the top 8, or top 4 in this stage.
7-0 is a pretty sweet spot. It's like knife's edge. You have a good shot at just going 9-0, and that's of course that's far from a guaranteed top 4 or anything, but it's a much different story than a 7-2.
So Karsten now, back to him. 5 mana.
No more attacks. 4 life for Banes, but no way to tap your Spireside Infiltrator except for, suiciding it.
And Bastion Mastodon comes in. You see the pace is picked up a little bit as the replay of the video has been turned up. And Noxious Gearhulk comes down, gains Karsten a bunch of life and provides a huge body here. Away goes the Mastodon. And that's going to slow things down even further. And Simon Goertzen, I'm very concerned about the amount of time left that these players have.
Frank is so close to winning this game. It's really it's a matter of having like just a little bit more, and now being able to give haste to Noxious Gearhulk, of course, a huge deal as well.
So holding back the Thriving Grubs, Karsten at a very comfortable 25 here.
You can see that Steve is not playing on his own because he has a teammate there.
Oh, and Skywhaler's shot takes care of the Gearhulk. So still snag Karsten a 2-for-1, as the Gearhulk almost always does.
Steve is at 3, I presume.
3 thanks
from
to
the trigger,
ping, yes.
But he has nothing left.
Look at that, clearing off the battlefield quite nicely.
It was a valiant effort.
And we see now turn 1, turn 2 of extra turns come down. And both of these players here, Bairns is going to play this very defensively. And Karsten, maybe an unlicensed disintegration. Even then, that's not going to do it. No artifacts to speak of. And turn number 5. And after all of that, this match, this game, fizzling into a very tame draw by the look of things as we get the handshake indicating that a result was not found between Frank Karsten and Steve Bairns. Our final match remaining, these guys getting an extension, a time extension in the last round. Brent Voss and Tom Law, thanks to a judge call or two here. It's the same one before that we saw before, blue-white with the console authority of the consoles coming down. And Brent Voss is obviously leaning on that 9th Bridge Patrol in a big way.
And we're speeding through this because pairings for round 9 have gone up. So we just want to know if the Dutch team or the British team managed to win this one. It's once again one of these races where Brent is ahead in life, but Tom seems to have the better board presence, although his 1/1s don't really match up all that nicely.
Voss looking to get on the front foot here and attack. This experimental aviator is able to block the servo without any problems. And here is Law lining up his blocks. This 9th Bridge Patrol really, really is very, very large indeed. And I've just been told that Baines actually did manage to force through a win before the end. That seems highly suspect. We'll check on that one, because Karsten was on 25.
No. The game between Karsten and Baines was a draw.
Almost certainly a draw.
No,
there.
we saw the counter on the turn counter, and that's
Windrake now for Tom Law. As Voss now with this enormous 9th Bridge Patrol.
The big question is what happens. The big question is what happens in this game, because they have been giving the time extension, and so they have to be they are deciding this game. If Tom wins or it's a draw, the British team wins. But if Brent manages to win this game, it's a draw for both of these teams.
Oh, that's right, because then the result will be 1-1 and 1.
It's a bit confusing, because it could end 1-0-2 or 1-1-1.
Look at this. This Gearhulk has come down and put a huge amount of pressure on Brent Voss here as Tom Law, sitting on 5 life, looks to peck in with the Windrake, but Voss has a hand full of cards. Unbelievable here. And the lone Blint Sleeve Artisan, after the Cataclysmic Gearhulk, has come and absolutely torn apart his board. But it's going to eat it to a Sky Whaler shot. And all of a sudden, Brett Voss is kicking Tom Law down to 2. Long-finned Sky Whale here isn't able to block any of the ground creatures. So if Voss has a removal spell for the Windrake, I can see Etherstorm Rock in hand. I can see a Revoke Privileges. And that's going to be enough. I think it is. Yes, indeed. Brent Voss at the death, saving his teammates' chances here. And 1-1, all wrapped up. A draw between the Dutch and the English. Back with round number 9 in just a few moments.